Listen. Short story long.
Welcome.
It could take your whole life.
Preach.
Develop clarity.
Second, patience.
If it scared you, you should probably do it.
Whatever you think you don't have, you have something else in its place.
Listen. Short story long.
Go, Woody, go.
Preach.
Listen.
Welcome.
Nick, what's up, dude?
What's up, brother?
Welcome to the
Sam.
pod, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks
I'm
for
pumped
coming.
up.
I'm excited for this. We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
Shout out to young Casey Adams for
Casey's
setting
the
this
man.
up.
He's excited.
He's very excited. And I've seen some of your interviews. I've read some of your stuff. Your story is amazing. And I'm I appreciate you coming to share it. And I know I have a lot to learn from you. And that's what I'm hoping to do for this next hour.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's crack in it.
Let's get it. So take me to the very beginning, man. Like where are you from? Tell me everything.
Okay.
Just give me the picture of like baby Nick.
Yeah, so I was born in New Jersey. So I'm from Jersey, and I'm the baby of the family. So I have
How many?
2 sisters, 1 brother. And so it was my mom's last pregnancy. And, they went in for the first ultrasound. Everything was great. Went into the second ultrasound. Everything was great. And then a third ultrasound or a late ultrasound came in, and they sat my parents down, and they brought the baby up on the screen, and the doctors started looking at each other with these puzzled faces.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, "What's going on? Let us in. What's going on?" And they were like, "From the looks of it, it doesn't look like your baby's limbs are being developed. Looks like he's missing his legs, his arm. They said have a cleft palate." They painted a very grim picture for my parents. Saying that I was, you name it. Like they didn't call me a boy or a girl. It was an it. They called me an it.
Jeez.
And basically they said that your son has about a 30% chance to live. And so what they classified me with was hand-heart syndrome.
Okay.
And so hand-heart syndrome is a super rare genetic disorder, and it either leaves the babies with undeveloped limbs or undeveloped organs. And so actually at the time of my birth in 96, I'm 23, I was the 12th baby in medical history that they've ever seen it happen to. And out of the 12, 8 of them have passed away due to undeveloped organs. And so the babies will be born and they can't breathe on their own, they can't eat on their own, and they later on pass away. And so they, like I said, they painted my parents a very grim picture of what it would look like.
Yeah. So your organs were all fine.
Yeah, so I was born. My mom had a C-section. I was a C-section baby. I was born, and then they immediately took me away from my parents and did tests on my organs, and they came back and said, Mr. and Mrs. Santonastasso, everything's all good. Like your baby's 100% healthy. He's just missing his, his legs and his arm. And, my mom always said, we talk about this. My mom always said, like, the first thing she noticed, I had a full head of hair and I was cute. So I guess we were starting off pretty good.
Yeah.
But for my parents, as parents, they didn't see anything else. They didn't notice the missing limbs or anything. The one thing they noticed, I was just like a beautiful baby. Yeah. And that took them by surprise because the medical industry, like I said, painted a very disgusting picture. Like he's going to look like this and he's going to have cleft palate and all these things, like you name it. They just put a list of a bunch of negative things. And my parents chose to not focus on that. Although it was super hard, they were focused on that 30% of me living rather than the 70, because, we always say focusing on the negative doesn't serve you, doesn't empower you. And so my parents being I always say I'm the offspring. My parents are just superheroes.
Yeah. Damn it, man. And how freaking lucky you are. I mean,
yeah, I'm a unicorn.
What I mean? Like, how crazy is it to be able to say, what, you're one of 4, you said?
At the time, yeah.
Like, I'm not one of 4 of anything. You know what I'm saying?
Wild, yeah.
I'm like, I'm not in that. You're one of 4.
Well, we're both humans. So we both made, let's not discredit that, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're both humans. The crazy fact that, we're all here as humans and we get to experience the human and consciousness, we're all winners. We're all crazy, super rare, slim chance that we're all here.
Big time. But how many humans are there?
A lot.
7 billion? Is that the number? What's the number?
It's always growing.
So I'm just one of 7 billion, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm lucky. I'm positive. I feel good about my life.
Yeah.
But damn it, man, you're one of 4. That's sick.
It's
and
wild.
I think I didn't realize that it could have just went one of 2 ways. And one way you essentially don't survive.
Yeah.
And one way you do.
Yeah.
Wild. Okay, here's my next question. So it's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but
No worries.
is that just how your parents are? Like your parents just look on the bright side and just...
Yeah. I asked my mom because I was able to do a podcast with my parents, and I was
amazing.
like, I was like, what's your thought process? And they were like, well, you were the fourth kid. They were like, we already had 3 shots at being a parent, you know, so we already knew like, some of the things. But basically, like, they were saying that they brought me home and they didn't tell my siblings anything, just that mom was pregnant, like, and that was another massive fear for my parents, which I came to know, is that they were super scared of like, well, the siblings see that mom's pregnant. What happens if they don't come home with a kid?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tell like, where'd the baby go?
Yep.
And so they came home and they said, that my siblings were so excited to meet their baby brother. And like my dad, like I could fit in the palm of his hand. Like, it was just like this little thing.
Yeah.
And they unwrapped me and they just like didn't even notice either. Like, and that was the way my parents introduced me. And so that was just another like technique or, an approach my parents took, was like, they didn't put the focus on it. Like, hey, like they didn't say, oh, your baby brother's going to be born. But no, like they just here, and that's the same, like that's the same approach for all parents. Like if a baby falls down, you have 2 ways to react. You can freak out and the baby's going to freak out more. Yeah. You kind of just, you're okay. You're okay. And it's just like how you react.
Yeah. Damn it, man. As I get older, I realize how important it is how your parents talk to you.
It's programming.
And communicate.
We're programmed.
It's so crazy, man. Because you could so easily have picked up on some like, my parents aren't happy about this, or they're babying me, or they're, you know what I'm saying? Like that has to be, one of the most common has to be that your parents teach you like, hey, it's okay. Just don't leave your little box.
The confine,
Yeah, like you're out here living an incredible life. You know what I'm saying? And like, I don't know, because I've seen how much that can damage anyone to have parents that sort of protect them too much. You know what I mean?
It's a big thing. I tell people that was my biggest advantage that I had, was my parents didn't baby me. Yeah. They like, dude, I got beat up by my siblings. Like my brother was a wrestler. Like they would practice wrestling moves on me. Like it was just like super normal. Yeah. And I was talking about it. I was on the phone with my mom the other day and she's like, Nick, like we didn't do anything like amazing. Like you became an adult and did your things and you created the person you are. Like we just instilled some foundational habits or foundational things. And the one thing was like, they didn't do everything for me. Yeah. And so like, they'd put me in my high chair with food and be like, all right, Nick, figure it out. And they give verbal suggestions, or, see, my dad always wanted to like adapt things and strap things to me and see if I could do it. And then they got to the point where they were like, I'm going to stop adapting things for him, because the bottom line is like the world's not going to adapt to him. Yeah. If I make everything easy in the house, if I put little loops on the doors and I put little loops on the cabinets, and that doesn't help him when he goes to the real world. Yeah. And so like I'm super grateful and appreciative that they had that, that moment. Yeah. That moment of like, dude, like we can't handicap him. And that's, a question I ask in my seminars. Yep. I have people reflect, raise your hand if you're a parent, and I say, are you doing too much for your kids? Yeah. And then if you want to take into the business life, are you doing too much for your teammates? Yeah. Like, are you not putting them in uncomfortable situations because like you're not going to grow? And so there's so many parents out there that may have even full-bodied kids that they don't even know that they're limiting them or handicapping them by doing everything for them. Yeah.
Big time. And there was a quote or something that you said on Tom's show about how people will say, oh, you're disabled or whatever, and you look at them and their mindset and you're like, no, you don't realize how handicapped you are.
We were talking about that in the airport. I was like, dude, you know what like the biggest, mind-blowing thing is? I was like, so many people, like all day, right, dude, all day. Yeah. Like people stare at me, like I see it, like everything. It's just, I stick out like a sore thumb, right? Yeah. And so like people stare at me, and even, the other day we were in Miami and was talking to this girl, and she was like, like we were having just regular conversation. She's like, I feel so bad for you. And I'm like, what do you, like, why? Like, I want to know why people say that. And so I like dive in. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, like you're in the club and, like you have no legs, one arm, and like look around you, like everybody has what like you don't. Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't view it as that. And I was like, read my bicep. And, I have a quote on my bicep that says, you laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at you because you're all the same. Yeah. And that's not just a Nick quote. That's like an everyone quote. Like if you want to build a brand, or if you want to be successful in any area of your life, like you show up your authentic self. Yeah. Like you show up transparent, you show up authentic. And for me, it's just like, once I've realized that this body is not so bad, because like it wasn't like we were talking about before we got on camera, like it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Like like my whole thing is from victim to victor, and I was a victim. We all had that victim mentality, right? Like you've had times in your life where you've been like sitting in traffic or something, you're like, why me? Even though our lives can be so great, we all fall into that little section of like why me,
course,
right?
yeah,
And you know, the beginning of my life, it was why me.
Yeah.
You know, like why me? Like why do the kids have to make fun of me? And you know, playing kickball, and why can't I ride a bike like the other kids? And why am I not growing? And like why everyone taller than me? Like these are the things that I would ask myself, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until, you know, getting into high school that I was able to start working on switching that victim mentality. But middle school and high school, I always say most judgmental times of our lives, right? Like middle school and high school, it's like ruthless out there.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, you know, one of my biggest worries was like, oh, I'll never have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll never have girls loving me. As humans, we crave energy. Like we crave, whether it's feminine energy or masculine energy, we crave energy in our lives. And you know, for me, middle school and high school, like boyfriends and girlfriends are a big deal, and I didn't get that. You know, so I always I thought, you know, girls looked at me in a certain way, and I had this one incident where I was on a bus, and I had to ride the short bus because of my wheelchair, and I was sitting in the seat, and there was a girl to the right of me, and she was like going down, just like making fun of everyone. And I was like, man, she's gonna have a field day with me. And she got up to me and she looked at me, and she was like, dude, she's like, I don't even have to start with you. You're already too messed up anyway.
Who was this? Was it?
I know her name. I'm not putting her on blast.
But was she a kid? She was one of the students?
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. And so she said that to me, and you know, as humans, we stack thoughts.
Yeah.
And we can stack them in positive ways or negative ways. You know, like you notice if you roll out of bed the wrong way, and if you don't catch your thoughts and your patterns and the way you're going through life, like the whole day is going to be negative if you don't catch yourself, right? Because like our brain is designed to be negative, to be honest, like to keep us away from fears and all these things. And so I would stack the thoughts. And when she said that to me, I was like, man, Nick, you're disgusting. No girl's ever going to like you because you're born with no legs and one arm. Like, this is it. Like, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And so girls were my biggest suicidal trigger.
Yeah.
My biggest suicidal trigger, they would, you know, just put me in the deepest, darkest place that wanted to take my life. And I'm uncomfortable in my body. And, you know, you're a chubby kid. I have no confidence. I thought you were either born with confidence or you didn't have it. Like, just drove me to my deepest, darkest moments.
Yeah. And what did you do in that time? So that's like middle school, early high school?
Middle school, high school, yeah. High school, all high school, yeah.
Got it. What did you do? Like, did you go talk to your parents about it? Did you have a friend you could confide in, or did you just sort of take it all?
Yeah, I took it all.
Yeah.
I was able to interview, you know, not only my parents, but my family. And my sister said to me, she looked at me and she's like, Nick, I had no idea you wanted to take your life, and I was 2 doors down.
Yeah.
She said, why? Yeah. And I'm a big believer in energy, and I know that energy is contagious. And I knew that, one, if people knew I was sad, then I have to talk about it. Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. You know, like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, you know, right? I just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then 2, I knew that if, you know, people saw that I was sad, or if I came home from school and I was sad, that would affect my family, and that would affect my parents. And so I'd cry in the shower because, you know, why are your eyes red? I got soap in my eyes.
Yeah,
you know, like I always knew how to finesse, and because I didn't want to talk about my feelings. And I had a great set of friends, super grateful. I had a great set of friends my whole entire life, but like I kept it to myself.
Yeah.
And I would cry in the room. I would think about things. And the thing that really turned me around was this whole concept that I feel like everything comes back down to is the relationship you have within yourself, your self-integrity. Yeah. And so what I mean by that is, like, I was a kid that thought you were either born with confidence or you didn't have it. Like, where does this thing come from?
Yeah.
And so what confidence is, it's a skill, and it's something that you basically work on and you build by keeping your promises within yourself. Mm-hmm. And so if someone is showing up in their personal life or in their business life and not showing up to their full potential, it's probably everything stems down to their lack of confidence. And that lack of confidence can be can go into their limiting beliefs of, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't have the resources, I don't have the limbs, like whatever it may be, right? Yep. It comes down to confidence. And so I had to figure out a way to build my reputation within myself because I didn't like it. But
what even happened that you even thought that? Because even going from my life sucks, this is terrible, whatever, I'm not going to even tell anyone, to having that realization that there is even something you need to build is such a massive step. Like, do you remember what started to put that together for you?
Yeah, I think it was 2 things. I hit a threshold. I hit a pain threshold. Like, dude, like, I don't want to live like this. Yeah. You know, like, I don't, like, one thing I knew that I would have suicidal thoughts, but I'd never take my life because I knew the negative tsunami that it would leave afterwards to my family, my friends, everyone. And so, like, I knew that I had thoughts, but I knew that I'd never take action on it. Yeah. I knew that. And so I was like, dude, like, well, like, what are you going to do to get out of this hole? Maybe be with your friends more. Like what makes you happy?
Yeah.
because I needed to do more things to get my mind off of me focusing on all the negative. That's what I was. I was focusing on my body and all the things that I hated about it.
Yeah.
And so my first thing was bowling. So my best friend Dan, we're still best friends. My whole entire life he wrestled. All my best friends were wrestlers. Jersey's like big wrestling.
Yeah.
But his freshman year he decided to bowl. And he was like, dude, you could bowl. He's like, it's really easy. Just push the ball down the lane. You know, you get to eat when you come back. Like, it's really easy. And I'm like, dude, I'm in.
Yeah, we love bowling. We're big bowlers.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I was like, dude, I'll bowl. And it was my first taste of being part of a team.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing, maybe it was a limiting belief of mine that I could never be able to be an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can't be an athlete. Or I don't know where that stemmed from. Maybe it was outside noise. Maybe it was me.
Yeah.
But I was like, you can't be an athlete. And so I got on the bowling team, and it was a step, you know. So like I'm on the bowling team, and I was a JV bowler, and I wasn't very good, but I was a part of a team, and I got to go, you know, after school, I got to go on the bowling bus with all the bowling guys, and like I felt, you know, that was my first step of, you know, just feeling better about myself, and so that was my first step was like finding an accountability group or finding people that I could hang out with more to put my energy elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I did bowling, and then I, you know, my sophomore year, I realized like, you know, I don't want to bowl anymore. I want something better, and from middle school, like the wrestling coaches knew my brother, and they were always like, dude, Nicky, when are you getting on the mat? When are you getting on the mat? And my whole time, like this arm was 5 inches longer than it is now. And so my bone was growing faster than my skin. So like the majority of my childhood, I would always tuck my arm in, and I wouldn't hit it on any things. Because if I would have hit my arm hard enough, my bone would have came through my skin. And even when I was a first grader, a second grader, they were in the school system, they were trying to get me a part of like, you know, like a team or extracurricular activity. And so the band teacher came in and was like, you want to try to play the drums? And I'm like, yeah, I want to try to play the drums. And so they'd take me out of class, and I'd be able to play drums. And what they did was they ace bandage sticks around my limbs. So basically ace bandage a stick to this one and to this one. And the school got me an electric drum set. So basically I can, with my quads, I can sit on the hi-hat pedal and I could sit on the bass pedal. I'd play a full set of drums.
Yeah.
And so I got really good, and they moved me to the middle school band, and it was pretty cool. And so that was like a cool thing that I did. But with my arm being the way it was, like it would cut circulation off. My arm would get affected. I'd have to drain it. It was just my whole life. It was just like this challenge.
Yeah.
And so I got to sophomore year in high school. My buddy's like, dude, like, when are you going to wrestle? When are you going to wrestle? I'm like, dude, I can't, like, my arm. And, you know, that was always my thing of, like, if I go on the mat, my arm's going to, like, I'm going to hit my arm.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most physical sport, like, my arm's going to come out, right? So, like, what do I need to do? And so I came home, and, you know, I waited for both my parents to come home, and I was like, Mom and Dad, I want to wrestle. And at this point, they had no idea about my suicidal thoughts, anything that I wanted to get out of a hole. Yeah. I was just like, I want to wrestle. And anything that I kind of told my parents, they just was like, yeah, like, they were very supportive, but this was different. And my mom was like, dude, like, wrestling's the most physical sport. Like, your bone's going to come through your skin, Nick. Like, what do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, can we cut it off? Can we amputate it? Can we do something about it? And they were like, is this something that you really want to do? And I was like, yes. And they were super supportive and quick to act on like scheduling the appointment. I want to give context to that because when I was born, the medical industry wanted to do a bunch of crazy things to me. Yeah. So one, like, this finger is 2 bones in one. So they wanted to split my finger in half. Or they wanted to cut my finger off because they're like, oh, he don't need it. Or they wanted to put screws in my quads and put like bone lengthening. So basically, I'd sit in a hospital bed for 6 months, and every day they'd turn the screws and lengthen my bones. So maybe I'd have the possibility of getting prosthetics. Got it. They want to do a bunch of things to me, and my parents, again, super grateful for their decision. They were like, that's not my decision to put, you know, my baby into you know, a bone lengthening process or cut his finger off. He can't make the decision for himself. Yeah. And so when I came to my parents with this solution of like, yo, they were like, Nick brought it, like, let's do it, you know, because my dad knew that it was a problem, but he wanted me to bring the solution. He didn't want him to make the decision for me. Yeah. And so they were super pumped up about it. Like, super opposite, right? Like, oh, I want to cut my arm off. Like, usually parents would be like, you're crazy. Like, they thought it was crazy.
We've been waiting for this. You're like, what?
Yeah. But they were super supportive of it. So my sophomore year, I went to, you know, the doctors. They did the appointment, and basically they lasered 5 inches of my bone off, and they did a skin graft where they pull extra skin from up on my shoulder so I can do physical activities with it, so I can beat people up with it. Yeah. And if you want to chime in, you told me to just lay it on you.
No, bro, this is great. I'm in it. Yeah. I'll cut you off if I feel like I have another question, but you're cruising.
And so I go back to school after the amputation, and people, I say I was the happiest kid that just cut his arm off. People are like, dude, what'd you do? I'm like, I cut my arm off. I'm going to be a wrestler. And, my friends supported, but there was always people of like, all right, dude, let's be real.
Yeah.
Like how you become a wrestler. And, we always have the outside noise, the haters, the naysayers. And it's all about how you react. Everything's about how you react. And so I was like, you're right. I'm not going to become a wrestler. I'm going to be a varsity wrestler, and you're going to watch, and I'm going to attempt it. And that like getting into that mentality of like, as long as I try, as long as I give it my all, like then I can't lose. And so my junior year, I tried out for my wrestling team. I was a JV wrestler, and I went in there, and the same approach that my parents took at me. I said, guys, like, don't hold back on me. Like, beat me up. Like, beat me up. Like, do whatever you need to do, because like if I go on the mat and I'm not prepared to get beat up, like I'm gonna get beat up. Yeah. And so asking you shall receive. My buddies beat me up good, bro. Like there was moments where I'd like just like break down mentally. Just like there was an exercise in wrestling, and if these guys are watching it, they know how terrible it was. But it was called sharking. It was called a shark. So basically, there'd be whatever weight class you were in, there'd be like 5 guys in a circle, and there'd be one guy who's the shark, and you had to get 5 takedowns or else you don't get out. Okay. And so like guys come in, beat you up. Guess who's not getting takedowns? The guy with no legs and 1 arm. Like, dude's getting his butt kicked. Dude, I'd literally be in the middle just getting my butt kicked for like 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. And they would be like, all right, like get out. Like, we'll let you out. Yeah. And I would just like be so like drawn, or just so like physically and mentally exhausted. Yeah. But it was like a mutual benefit of like looking over at my buddies, and if I could crack a smile while getting my butt kicked, like that energy is contagious, right? We go back to energy. And so, it was like a symbiotic relationship or with my buddies of, as long as, we're sweating and we're getting our butt kicked, like if we could just crack a smile and send some energy, like we just keep going through it. And so
one question I have is, it seems like so much of what you're about is helping other people. Right? Yeah. Like is uplifting other people, motivating other people. I mean, you put a lot of emphasis on other people, which needless to say is incredible, because for someone with all of the adversity that you face, I could see how it'd be so easy to say, F everyone else. How come no one's worried about me? Right? Or how come blah, blah, blah. How come you found the way? And I believe that that's the only way to actually make progress in the world, is to think about giving back to other people and what you're doing for other people. But I could see how that would be so hard, right? Yeah. And we see a lot of people, it's really popular right now to talk about how unfair things are for you. You know what I'm saying? Like people do that. Like it's like, and I'm not saying I'm going to approach this really lightly, because a lot of people have very good reasons to complain. Yeah. But it seems like right now everyone has a way that they've been slighted and that the world is unfair for them. And they want to join up with their group, and they want to complain about, no, it's worse for us. No, it's worse for me. No, it's worse for me. Where I believe that you can never really win that way. You have to flip it and never be a victim, and think about what you can do for other people, not what the world owes you. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, the world just isn't built to build you up because you need it. It builds you up because you give to it, right? Absolutely. But do you think that your wrestling days, and like even when you say like I'm getting the shit kicked out of me, and I just think if I can just smile at my homie and let him see that like we're all having fun here, maybe I can uplift him, is that where that first started to connect for you? Was it the feeling of helping? The feeling of like, yo man, I'm gonna use my circumstance to build other people up. And then I'm sure you learned like, well shit, that makes me feel better, and now I have this new goal here. But like, do you think that's where that first started to?
Yeah, it was during wrestling. There was a specific moment where I came off the mat one time after getting my butt kicked, and this lady came up to me crying. And, she was like, Nick, I want to thank you. And I was like, for what? Yeah. And she's like, my daughter's over there on the sideline. She never wanted to do a sport or an extracurricular activity, but like she wants to try all these things. Like you did something to her. Yeah. You not only motivated her, inspired her, but like shifted her perspective. Like I want to thank you. She wants to try all these things. I couldn't get through to her as a parent. Yep. And that's when like a light bulb went off in my head, because like, dude, before that, like I was on the mat for myself, bro. Yeah. Like I was on the mat trying to dig myself out of a hole. I'm sure. Like I wasn't really focused on other people, to be honest. Like I was like, Nick, what are you going to do to get yourself out of this hole? Well, if I can become an athlete, well, if I'm a wrestler, people look at me as a wrestler, and then I'm an athlete. That gains my confidence. I get to run out with the team. Wrestlers are the most badass thing. I thought they were the most badass thing ever. So it was more for me. Yeah. It was more for, for me to gain significance and for me to gain certainty and all these, these needs. I wasn't focused on anyone else, but like my buddies, like that was always the relationship of like, you know, as hard as things are, like we always got to just like make a joke about it, you know, like we're all getting beat up, like we're all in the same, you know, sweat room with the temperature 100 degrees. Like we got to make the best out of it. And so that moment of when that parent came up to me, I realized like, wow, like I didn't even mean to do that. Like, you know, like that wasn't my like, wow, like, you know, that flipped the script for me. It was like, that not only did it feel good, but that wasn't my intention. So imagine if I focused my intent on that, on intent on serving. And then that's when I also realized it was another moment where I was like, wow, well, this body that I always thought was negative it's doing some good for others. You know, and then the thought, I was like, wow, like maybe I was strategically put here on earth like this. And, you know, that thought always comes to my head. We were just talking about this when we were eating, because as like, you know, I'm on more shows and more notoriety, and like I stick out like a sore thumb and people see me on the streets, and, you know, it's just like that. It wasn't always like this. I want people to know that. Like it wasn't always like this, and I didn't always view this body as that. But, you know, once I got a little bit of taste of contribution, you know, once I got a little bit of taste of helping others, like that's when my life started to change. And, you know, people always can listen and correlate contribution with money immediately, but it's like not always money. Like it's like me complimenting your shoes, or, you know, anything like a compliment. Like we can contribute in so many different ways. And like I challenge people watching this podcast, like after this podcast, go out and just say hi to a stranger. Pattern interrupt people. Like go say hi to a stranger, compliment their shoes, compliment their hair, do something. Especially nowadays with phones, like people are losing human interaction. Like we don't even know how to have conversations in real life. Like you get in the elevator and you say hi to someone, they're like, what? You know, they're pattern interrupted, bro. And so like once you get a little taste of how good contribution feels, you know, you'll be like, wow, I want to do more of that. And so once I felt that feeling, it was fulfilling. You know?
That's why I think from what I've learned, that is the perfect epitome of how this whole thing works. So if you go out into the world, everyone has shit they feel bad about themselves, right? Nobody's just born so confident.
No one. Let's emphasize
literally
that.
No one. Even the people you look at and you're like, oh, they would. Like they have a trust fund.
Mike Tyson or LeBron James.
Nobody.
Anyone.
So my point is, if you go out and just demand sympathy, that doesn't work. A lot of times, if you go out and just say, well, let me tell you how to live your life better. Let me tell you how you should live. That doesn't work either, right? You're like, what? I'm contributing. I'm telling everyone how to live their lives. It comes from fighting your own path and being a true example of how to make it out of the dark times, or how to face adversity, or how to face fear. When you become a living example of that, then people come to you and say, oh my gosh, you affected me so deeply. And then you're like, oh shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's where, like, when people talk about like the deepest sense of purpose, it comes from that, I think. It comes from your true journey truly contributing to other people. You know what I mean? Like you felt it in such an authentic way. And we also live in a time where, and I don't want to complain too much because that's what I feel like I'm worried that I'm doing, but where, like, you know, people see, oh, there's a path to like trying to be a motivational person or teach people on social media. So I'm just going to be a teacher. But the question is like, well, you're not leading by example. You know, it's like, what have you done? And so these people aren't finding fulfillment either. And they're like, well, what? Everyone's saying just contribute. I'm contributing. I spend all day telling other people how to live their lives. And it's like, if you can find a way through business, life, sports, anything, to truly embody that and then just let that connect with people, to me, it's the deepest sense of purpose and of meaning and of why you're here. You know what I mean?
It's like you're not trying. You're just like doing.
It just is.
You're just doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And even for me, like I was on TV for 10 years. And from the age of 19, any mall in the country that I would go to, people would recognize me. They'd come up, they'd ask for pictures, whatever. It was really cool at first. But then I realized, and I have no bad feelings about my time on TV, but there was nothing of me. Like it was like, hey, that episode was really funny where like the mini horse pooped in the, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh, thanks, dude. Like crazy. But the moment I started doing this podcast, even though the audience is smaller than what a hit show on MTV was, now people come up to me and say, hey man, you know, episode 72 really changed my, like, could you just talk to my mom real quick? Cause like she knows that changed my life. And like, that feels like such a deeper thing,
purpose,
you know?
or fulfillment, right?
Like I just feel like there's a really important lesson in the fact that you didn't set out to inspire people. You set out to heal your own shit. And by doing that, you became the example of how to do it. And now it's full circle, and you're the happiest smiling dude I've had on the show.
It's like a perfect example, that the amputating story.
Yeah.
Like so fast forward a couple years, I moved to Tampa. I had a mentor, and I was kind of crafting like my speaking and stuff, and he was like, dude, like, you realize like you cut your arm off to wrestle? And to me, I was just like, oh yeah, what do you mean? And he's like, no, you need to talk about that. Like, that's like crazy. And like I said, to me, it was just like I was doing it.
Yeah.
And other people were getting affected by it. So like exactly like you said, and like for people who are trying to build a brand or trying to build a following, and because that's a common question, like how do we build a brand? How do you build, a following? Well, you just talk about things that people don't usually talk about. Like, what are the things that you've gone through? Yeah. The things that people, because social media, it's a big, mirage, right?
Yeah,
like it's all highlight reels, right? Yeah. And so like the person that shows up and is all, like going back to authenticity and transparency, like the reason why I share about girls being my suicidal trigger is because I went through some shit and it helps people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if someone's trying to be like, how do you be a motivational speaker? How do you inspire people? It's just like, well, what's the stuff you've been through and like how'd you get through it?
Yeah.
And like be authentic about your challenges. What do you struggle with right now? Me and you, like we both struggle with things right now, or like currently, right? Yeah. And like just on social media, people think like we're perfect. Yeah. And like we just, it's all sunshine and rainbows, but like we still struggle with things. And that's why like when you will share about like things you struggle with, there's going to be a kid or there's going to be an adult, and it's like, man, like I didn't think he struggled with that. Yeah. Or we go through the same things. And then that person's tied to you more emotionally than any MTV show would ever be, right? Because they know the things that you've been through. Yeah. And so it's just like, it comes back to authenticity. Everybody's trying to find this super secret sauce. Yeah. You want to know the sauce? Show up authentic. Yeah. Because like, I think we can both agree in the world we live in nowadays, there's not many authentic people. Yeah. Like there's not many authentic, transparent people. And so it's that rare percentage of the world that like when you show up authentic, you stand out, man. Yeah. You stand out so...
That's the good news.
Like a shining light.
That's the good news. Stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the easy.
When is authenticity going to be the trend? Like, show up.
That's why I think too is a really interesting lesson that I'm taking from your amputating your arm story is like, so one version of that story is I was forced to amputate my arm because my bone was growing faster than my skin, and you know what? I thought I couldn't take anymore, and that was just the final straw. When you have something that you're going for, a goal, like I want to be a wrestler,
a vision,
a reason for moving forward, that then just becomes something in your way that you're like, sick, man, my parents are down for it. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like it changes the whole thing. And I think it's the importance, like even in my business, there are times when I have severely lost the core purpose of why I have a business, because it's not, I want to be the best t-shirt seller in the world. I want to find a way to make t-shirts the cheapest they can possibly be and sell them for a good price. It's not any of that, right? It's what we're doing here. It's all this that it allows me to do. But when I lose sight of that, now I don't know why I'm making decisions. It's like, hey, can we cut costs on this new run of clothes that we're shipping to our retailers? I don't know. Maybe, yeah. What, we'll make more money? Okay. And there's nothing to it. Yeah. But when you have a reason for what you're doing, it makes every decision for you. Yeah. And so I think the arm thing was like, well, fuck, yeah, I want to get
it's part of the vision.
Yeah, like that's just going to get me where I'm trying to go. Get this thing out of here.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that's like, there's a lesson in that like I said, I'm sure you already know and that you incorporate into your stuff. But when you have an outcome in mind, the decisions become much easier. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because if not every day. Too. Yeah. Yeah. Because every day we're faced with so many decisions, and you don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe this decision to wear these shoes today was a terrible decision. I don't know. Yeah. But if you have a bigger reason why, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one. Let's dive into that, because like having a vision or having a purpose is huge, and that's how I've gotten to where I am, is because I've always had a vision, and not only had the vision but believed that I could achieve it. With all other people saying, dude, that's ridiculous. Yeah. You know, like we all had a vision, and everything, and I'm not even gonna, it may sound cocky, but everything that I said I was going to do, I've done. Because I've had this vision. I believed in myself and my ability to attain it. So like after wrestling, the app Vine came out. Right? Vine came out and people were freaking out over Vine. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna make some Vine videos.
Yeah. Are you still in Jersey at this time?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm in high school. I'm a senior. Okay. And so I was like, man, I want to do something that's never been done before. And the one thing I've realized is like, okay, well, I want to make people laugh, but there has to be like a deeper meaning, like a deeper purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I know that I've been suicidal and had these thoughts and uncomfortable in my body. And, you know, we all feel uncomfortable in our body at least once in our life. Like people would be lying if they said they didn't have thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that adults and kids all feel this way. And if they can look on their phone and go, wow, look at Nick living his best life. Like maybe I could be a little bit more happy in my body, right? I wanted to create that. So I was like, all right, what's never been done? And then so we came up with the idea. I was like, all right, I'm going to dress up as a zombie and scare people.
Yeah.
As a legless zombie. Like it's never been
yeah,
done
I did
before.
see that.
Yeah. So it's never been done before. Let's do it. And so my first video, I went to my local Walmart, which got kicked out, not allowed in that Walmart anymore in Jersey. And I scared a guy and he threw paper towels at my face. It was a 6-second video and I posted it.
Yeah.
And I went to school. I went to sleep for school the next morning.
Yeah.
And I woke up, it had over 80,000 likes and over 80,000 rewinds. It was at the top of the popular page for like 2 days. I gained 50,000 followers in a day. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
And, but real quick, wrestling gave me enough confidence to put myself out on the internet.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
the internet's a very nasty place. Like for the majority of
Yes,
the time,
big
right? It's a
time.
very nasty place.
But that's what I love is first it was freaking bowling.
Yeah, it
You know what I
started
mean?
somewhere.
Like
Yeah,
bowling
yeah,
with
yeah,
your
yeah.
homies and eating shitty food and like, oh shit, I can do something. Then to wrestling, then
Steps.
to like nobody talks enough about that. You know, it's like, well, how do I
Self-integrity.
go from being depressed in my room to famous on social media? How do I do that? You know, and it's like you got to start with
These
the thing, but-
little steps, like we said, going back, like I've been analyzing everything, and it comes back to the relationship you have within yourself. So we can think and we can reflect on so many things in our life that we said, oh, I'm going to do that, and then you didn't follow through. Every time we commit to something and we don't follow through, like we diminish ourselves, and the way we feel about ourselves, right? And so, you know, I go back to school. People are freaking out over the zombie prank. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, and I just kept on with it. So I was doing pranks, and I gained 1 million followers in under a year. And then The Walking Dead hired me to scare Norman Reedus in Japan on their press tour. And like all this came, and I want to tie back to this. All this came from me trying to make people laugh and inspire them. Serving goes back to serving, right? Amazing opportunities. If I was just trying to post videos on Vine to make myself look cool and stuff, I was making myself look like a doofus. You know, like I'm getting like, you know, paper towels thrown at me and getting beat with wrapping paper. Like I was making myself look like it wasn't like a good look, you know? And so I was able to gain 1 million followers on Vine doing that. And that was at the same time where I graduated high school and I was going to go to college, and I got accepted to college and I decided to drop out and move to LA. And this is pretty cool. I moved to LA and I was supposed to be on a core cast show for like a show like Impractical Jokers, but the whole cast was disabled, so you could pull pretty messed up pranks. And so I'm 18, 19 years old. I knew nothing about business, contract shows. They're like, we need you out here. We need you out here. I signed a lease in Glendale. With a roommate. I found like one of my friends that was just old enough to like go out on his own. I'm like, I need to go to LA. And I signed a lease for like $1,800 a month in the shack in Glendale. 2 weeks after I signed my lease, they canceled the show. We didn't even film the pilot. And I'm like, that happens? I'm like, is this real life? Like the show just gonna cancel? Like I'm not getting paid? And I went broke. Like I refused to tell my dad I was struggling because, you know, I could always hear my dad like, I told you so, you know, but I went through this like 6 months of just like super low. I was sleeping on a pile of towels. I didn't have a bed. I knew that I didn't want to mess up my credit, so I'd rather like save money so I could pay my rent rather than like food all the time. And so I was like barely eating and super low point. And I learned fast, like, wow, like, you know, this is like the entertainment business and things fall through fast. And so after that 6 months, I moved back to Jersey, and it was kind of a defeat for me. You know, it's defeat. I still like, we were driving in LA and I'm like, man, like I remember being super broke here. I'm kind of uncomfortable like being back in LA. And I moved back home and I'm like, man, what's next? Because I had this vision of being the pranks. I was doing the pranks. I was the zombie king. Like no one else was doing what I was doing. And I was like, all right, I moved back to Jersey and I'm like, what's next? And, you know, I always wanted to be in shape. I always envied people that had six packs and stuff. And I never thought I could do it. And I analyzed the fitness industry. I'm like, well, here you go again, Nick. No, there's no guy with no legs and one arm in this industry. Like, if you can do it, you'll be successful. Like, you're a unicorn. Right? And so, and for people listening, you're probably like, well, I don't have no legs or I don't have one arm. We all have our unique abilities. Like, we all have our unicorn factor. Like, what are your strengths? I think it's funny, too, in school, like, in the standard educational system, they teach to what's your weaknesses, let's work on them. But entrepreneurship is like double down on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses, right? So it's like total opposite.
Yeah.
And so for everyone, like,
it's funny that you just had to say, real quick, I just want to say just how fucked up the internet is. It's funny that you just had to say, you know, and people out there complain like, well, I don't have no legs. And I don't have, you know what I mean? Like that's
I had to say it,
they're
yeah.
like, listen, man, I have 2 legs and 2 arms. He had an advantage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what people say in the comments.
well, I know there's someone out there thinking of that, right?
Like, this isn't fair, Nick, for me.
Yeah, you have the advantage. Whatever.
Yeah. It's
but
true
like,
though. That's what people do.
yeah, and so just wanted to put that out. Like we all like focus on your strengths. Like what are you good at? Really get clear, concise on what your strengths are and how you can, you know, provide value in the marketplace. Whatever it is, we're all unique in some way. I don't want anyone to say, like I said, well, he has no leg, like he has the X factor. No, we all have a certain X factor.
Yeah.
Right. And so I made an announcement to over 1 million people. I'm like, hey, I'm not pranking anymore, because I also realized that people were correlating me with a joke.
Yeah.
So like how that message with the mini horse, and you're like, well, fuck, whatever, okay, cool, like, you know, it's like I don't want that. Like, say I'm like an inspirational, or say I'm impactful, like not that I'm just funny, you know. And so I was like, man, like people just think of me as a joke, you know. I want something bigger and better, and so made an announcement. And this is where I made an announcement, not only like speaking things to existence, right? Like manifestation, like you can't just speak things and they happen. Yeah. But I was like, all right, I don't want to be a prankster anymore. I said, I'm going to become a bodybuilder. I'm going to break into the mainstream modeling industry, and I'm going to become a keynote speaker and to be super authentic. I have no idea what I'm doing, but these are the things I'm going to set out to do, and I want to feel fulfilled. Like this doesn't fulfill me anymore. And so I was like, let's start lifting. Like, where do I start? You know, and I had buddies in the wrestling room that would help me lift. And, you know, I had a lot of guys that were training with me and figuring out ways. And, you know, for the first 6 months of lifting, I was only lifting my left side. Like, I was like, oh, forget this side. You can't lift it, you know? And then I really fell in love with the therapeutic aspect of lifting and just being a staple in my life, and, you know, feeling more confident. Like another thing, like to add more confidence and make you feel better about yourself. I mean, like I said, like everyone's always worried about everyone else. Like we need to focus on our relationship with ourselves. Like as human beings, like how do you feel about yourself when you're lonely? Yeah. Like how do you feel yourself when there's no cameras like that? That's what you really need to like reflect on, is how do I feel when, you know, the cameras aren't around or I'm in my house? Yeah. And so at first people are like, dude, I hate these lifting videos. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, you know how the internet is. Like, I like you for your pranks. This is stupid. Like dumb. Like I'm following you. And I got a lot of heat, but like, at the end of the day, it made me happy. You know, it made me feel fulfilled. And I knew that I was working towards something. And so my knowledge in training got better. My knowledge in nutrition got better. And the one thing that I also realized is you can't buy a fit body. Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Yeah. And so I realized, like, dude, if you get to this certain point where you're in shape, people can't take that away from you. Yeah. They can't say, oh, well, you had it easy this time. Like, what are you going to say this time, bro? Like, I'm lifting, you know, like I'm in shape. Yep. And so when it got to that point, I got to work on a campaign with Reebok, with Conor McGregor and JJ Watt, which was pretty crazy. Yeah. And that started, you know, gaining more confidence in me, like just like building this machine, because everything I said I was going to do, I did. And so from lifting, I gained an amazing following in lifting. Like people still know me for bodybuilding. It's still a staple in my life. Yeah. I still, you know, want people to incorporate health and wellness into their life each and every day, because whether, you know, we're focused always on our mind, like our mind and our body is connected. We have a temple, right? Yep.
How much did you have to learn about your body? Because like, for instance,
still learning.
Exactly. Right. Because I think like part of the resistance for working out is people haven't been properly educated on how your body even works, like what muscles connect to what food does what, like, so you start to do it, you get a little disheartened, or maybe you get some quick progress and then you plateau and you're done. For you, I would imagine, because you're like making up, like you said, you just ignored your left side and then you're like, well, shit, I got to give it
I need
some.
That.
Yeah, like, so did you have to like learn, like, okay, this muscle connects to this, so if I do this, that will build, you know what I mean? Like
my first moment that clicked, that I realized, like, wow, was when I was 14 or 15, I said to my parents, I was like, you know, I want legs. Yeah. I want prosthetic legs. And with prosthetics, the less amount of limb you have, the harder the situation is. So I don't have much quad. I probably only have a couple inches of quad. And so we've been turned down so many times for prosthetics. He's not able to. Finally, I was 14, 15. We found a company. And I started off with little stilt legs. So there were no knees, just like stilts to strengthen my quads. Yep. And then they moved me up to big legs. And I was like, wow, it feels weird being over 5 foot. Like, how do you guys fall? You know, like, how do you guys get up when you fall? Like, these legs are really weird. Like, and so, like, me, like, I always want to just run, right? I always want to go full force. And I was walking with a walker, and I would practice standing up just on my own. And that's when I realized it was the first thing physically that I wasn't strong enough to do. The legs were 7.5 pounds each, and I was like, dude, you're not strong enough. Like, I was chubby. I was a fat kid. I'm Italian. I love food, bro. Like, I was like, I was a chubby kid, and that was my first realization of like, wow, you guys standing up, my lower back is firing. My obliques are firing. My abs are firing. Like, wow. Like, because you guys like that have I say you guys, it's funny. Like, people that are born with legs, right? Like, you don't realize how much muscle's going to you just walking around because you've built it over your life. Yeah. Right? So I was like, wow, like my lower back's weak and my obliques are weak. And it was the first thing physically. So, with going into lifting, it was all trial and error. It was just like I would strap myself into a bench. And when I moved to Tampa 2 years ago, my best friend and my trainer, and like he's security, he's like everything for me, Cody. He basically like sat me down. He's like, dude, your form's all messed up. Like, I'm going to be super, super strict on you because I want you to be able to travel alone and be able to lift efficiently. And so like, it's just realizing like micro movements and using a lot of resistance bands and realizing that like, if I just move this way and keep my shoulders back, that I can contract my chest the same way I contracted on this side. Like, you start educating yourself. It's kind of like, you know, a lot of people are money conscious, but no one's like, you know, fitness conscious or, you know, health conscious, right? Like, you know, I was just in a restaurant and I was looking at this guy and I was looking at his meal. I was analyzing his meal. I was like, well, he has a soda and a bag of Doritos. You've already lost your workout there. Like, your workout, if you worked out today, it's already shot, brother. Like, in my head, you know? I was like, your workout's already shot. Like, you might as well just quit like today, you know? Like, on that workout. So it's like you said, it's being educated. And so I was super strict. I always had this vision in mind of, you know, just being shredded and doing photo shoots with, you know, hot chicks. Like, that was the vision that pulled me, to be honest. Like, that was the vision that pulled me. And so my knowledge in training got better. My knowledge in nutrition got better. I even moved to Tampa to be in more of an environment, of a fitness environment, healthy environment. And then I made another announcement. I said, guys and girls, I'm going to get on the competitive bodybuilding stage. And I said, I have no idea what competitive bodybuilding is, but I'm going to do it to show you guys, you know, firsthand that when you throw yourselves in the trenches, it's the only way you level up. And so I dedicated 12 weeks of my life. Cody, shout out to Cody. He trained me for 12 weeks. And I did this bodybuilding transformation. I did this competition where it was men's physique. So they didn't judge your legs. So that's why I competed in that. Yeah, it's perfect.
Nailed that.
Nailed it. And so I took third. I beat full-bodied guys. And like, that blew my mind. But I documented my whole prep, and that's when I met The Rock. Like, if I didn't commit to bodybuilding, if I didn't have a vision of bodybuilding, I would have never met The Rock. Like, and that's a big relationship in my life. Like, he's massive. And I was in Vegas for Mr. Olympia for, you know, one of the biggest bodybuilding conventions. And I went there just to hang out with fans and supporters and just recharge myself because I love, you know, meeting people that support. And I was in the gym. I went to the expo Friday to Saturday, and I decided to stay home Sunday. I still needed to get a lift. I went into the gym, and my buddy was like, dude, The Rock's upstairs lifting. And I'm like, that's crazy. And, you know, his security guard came up to me. He's like, can Dwayne meet you? I'm like, dude, come on. Yeah, are you
not today.
No. And he came up to me. He's like, dude, I'm a big fan. I love what you do. Can I have a picture? Asked me about like what I was going to do. And the reason why I share this story is because I told Dwayne, I looked him in his eyes and I said, dude, I'm going to do what you did. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to take over the world. I said, you were known for football and then acting and then I don't know if you noticed, bro, but you took over the world. Like, you do everything. I said, I'm going to write a book. I need to become a speaker. I'm going to break into the mainstream modeling industry, reinforcing my thoughts. Remember, I said this before, that I told people I was going to do it. I'm always reinforcing my thoughts. Like right now, like on this podcast, I'm going to tell you about the things that I'm working on now, just to reinforce my beliefs and reinforce my vision, right? And I told him everything that I was going to do, and I've done it. I wrote the book. You know, I tour China. I speak internationally, and I don't say this in a cocky way. I say this because I've always been confident in my vision. Going back to that vision, have something that pulls you. And like when we have a vision and we're super clear and concise and it fires us up, like we'll do the tedious and bullshit tasks that we don't want to do because the vision's higher.
Big time.
Right?
Big time.
Like, because you have days where you don't want to get out of bed, right?
Oh, yeah, most of them. I love sleeping.
But like you have a vision that pulls you. You know?
Big time. Big time. And you know what
that was me blabbing about vision. Sorry.
I love that shit. You know what I love too about like, it sounds like most of your experiences, you've never said like, I'm going to join this like, you know, this other bodybuilding, like you've went with everyone. You've done a bodybuilding competition with the full body everyone and just said, you know what, I'm going to be in your shit. And I think like man, not that it's bad or not that there's any judgment on people who do that, but it sounds like you measure yourself against everyone.
Oh yeah.
Not some unique group of people and say, well, I'm going to do good here. You
Oh,
know what I'm
dude,
saying?
yeah, for sure.
Like,
competitive playing field. Like I don't want to be looked at any different. Like, like I people can look at this interview and he's like, oh, he's such a successful speaker because he has no legs and one arm. And it's just like, no,
Yeah,
like
but even that
practice
shit,
the
bro.
craft.
Yeah.
Like practicing the craft and realizing, like I'm the physiology and the energy and how to say words and everything. Like,
But do people say shit like that to you? Do people say
well,
like
there's always
you
that
have
justification.
But you actually get like comments where people are like,
I just
oh,
had a comment. I posted a video. I was on stage. I was on stage singing "Where the Hood At" by DMX,
Yeah.
like hyping up the
As you
crowd.
should be.
And as you should be.
Yes.
And someone commented and they said, I wonder if people treat you so well because they feel bad for you or you're actually like good.
Yeah. God damn it, man. The
There's
internet
always
is
that out there.
Yeah, that's wild, yeah.
And I don't know if you know Andy Frisella.
I don't know him personally, but we kind of have connected.
So like
a little.
Andy said something to me. I was at his pool party after the event. I spoke at an event and he came up to me and he's like, dude, he took off his sunglasses, looked me in the eyes.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's serious. He's
Yeah.
like, dude, I want to tell you something. He's like, it's not this. He's like, it's not your physical body. That's why you're so successful. It's like the way you deliver your speeches. He's like, I want to speak like you. He's like, I want to learn from you. He's like, I just want you to know that there's going to be people that discredit you and say it's because of your disability. It's not your, he was like so fired up. And it's just like, it mean the world to me because, like I said, I look at myself as even playing field.
Yep.
Like I want people to love me because of the way that I showed up, not because of what I look like.
Yeah, I know that this is so hard because it bothers everyone. And this is something that's very like, I think it probably happened throughout all of time, but it's very uniquely magnified with the internet and with comments, right? Because everyone has a thing that they can, like I've interviewed so many people and so many people that I am shocked that get like bothered at all by comments and stuff, get bothered by it, right? Because it's everyone's opportunity to pick at the thing that might be your weak spot.
Your insecurity, yeah.
And I'm just saying that for most people, it's like, hey man, just block it out. Like who cares? For you, I would just say, once again, I know this advice is harder to actually do than it is for me to say. The fact that you have gotten from a place where you were thinking about suicide, sitting in a room in high school, to getting people to say you're so successful because of your disability is like amazing. Like that's amazing,
Thank
bro.
you.
Think about how amazing it is that you have people sitting at home jealous of your success and blaming it on your disability. Who would have thought that? Like who would have thought for that high school kid that not only is this not going to hold you back in life, but one day people are going to try to find any justification for why you're so successful, and they're going to say that this gave you a head start.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
Give me some dab.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate that, bro.
that's-
Thank you.
Like you have to really, because there's a lot of people that get hate that I wouldn't expect to get hate. I wouldn't expect you to get an ounce of it. But you should really be proud that people now look at what you've done. Look at what you've done. Like no one would ever, you would have never thought in high school that people would be saying, oh, it's not fair for me because you were born this way.
Yeah. Mind blow.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's wild.
God,
I appreciate
man.
that.
Yeah,
I never even no, I don't even
yeah,
look
really
at it like
soak that in because what you were able to do was take something that could have so just crushed you and you could have been sitting in New Jersey right now. And someone said this to me once on this podcast, and it's so true, is you could have sat in New Jersey and felt bad for yourself and just been depressed and angry and chubby and whatever, and nobody would have blamed you. They would have been like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, that sucks, dude.
Yeah.
So not only could you have done it, everyone can do it. You could have done it, and you would have had literally everyone in your life telling you that that was fine, and they don't blame you, and oh, it's so unfortunate. But instead, you took that and got it to a point where people now say it's not fair for them.
That is wild.
Wild.
Thank you, bro.
That is wild. Anyway, yeah, it's just fascinating. So then
And
you also go ahead.
well,
Go
like
ahead.
no, I'm just saying like with vision. Like even now in my life, people ask like, what's next? What are you doing now? And the speaking thing, like it's blown up, and I've realized, you know, one thing that I can only reach a certain amount of people through personal development stages.
Yep.
You know, like there's not the majority of the world doesn't go to personal development stages, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, it's kind of like a bottleneck of impact. And so my number one passion was actually music and singing.
Yeah.
Like I have tweets from, you know, in high school, like I'm gonna hang out with Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
Like I've tweeted that, you
Yeah,
know, like I'm
yeah.
gonna hang out with Wiz Khalifa. I tried out, like my whole thing was singing. Like I tried out for American Idol, didn't make it. The Voice, I didn't make it when I was like 16, 17. I thought I was just gonna take over the world like so fast. Like I thought like, oh, I could sing, and you know, like it was probably a little bit of entitlement. I thought I was just gonna like get it, to be honest.
Yeah, you should.
And-
You should have that entitlement.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but now, like I've realized, like, you know, I tour all over the world for speaking.
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing, and I can meet, you know, I can touch thousands of people, millions of people. But like music's my passion, and so right now, something that we've been working on is, I wrote 2 songs, but the one song is towards like suicide awareness.
Yep.
And how social media is such a facade, or you know, a mirage, right?
yep,
And that comparison. Like even the biggest rappers, anyone name it, like you were saying, get like little butthurt over the comments or the comparison of people, right? It's like, dude, it's killing society.
Yep.
Like comparison is the thief of joy, and that's what I say in the beginning of the song. And you know, I have a lyric in there. It says, you know, life is a wave and I'm staring at a tidal. I'm just trying to be the light for the kids that are suicidal.
Yep.
Like that was me come and step into my shoes. I'll crack the no legs joke first, so technically you lose.
Yeah,
You know, like,
yeah,
dude,
good
like
shit.
I wanted to create like my personal development, like my messages and my techniques, but in music, and subconsciously, you know, program people in my music. And so like I'm filming the music video the 30th this month,
Yep.
and then it's gonna drop for suicide awareness.
Yep.
Suicide awareness month in September.
Yep.
And like I told you, I was just in Miami. I was taking DJ lessons, and like I want to do a set, but like put people through my gratitude exercise, and like just get people on a whole nother level of gratitude, and just feeling amazing about the human experience through music. And so like the visions never stop, yo. Like, you know, like the speaking, I've done that, but like acting, like I already have like movie ideas. Like, you know, every day in my journal, I write down Dwayne Johnson. I don't know why I write down him, but it's in my head. It's, you know, it's in proximity. Like every day I write down in my journal, just so people can see what I write down.
Yeah, please.
Is like, I had an idea that I'm going to see my language.
Yep.
Let people know, like, it's not, I hope, I'm going to make myself into a modern day Avenger.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Iron Man, well, like what if you were sitting in a movie theater and you saw a man with no legs and one arm, shredded, jacked up, and he was like in this movie, and he was just like fighting or doing something inspirational, and then getting an Iron Man suit and flying away. Like, you know, kids all over the world, kids and adults, they were like, wow, like anyone could be a superhero.
Yeah.
You know, anyone could be an Avenger. So every day in my journal, I write down, I am a modern day Avenger / actor. I never acted before, but I write it into existence, you know? And then the other thing is for modeling, I am the first Calvin Klein model with no legs and one arm, and I'm going to have a billboard on Sunset Boulevard on the side of the billboard. That's the vision. I always have these visions, and so like we were tying this all back to vision. Like I constantly have a vision that pulls me, because like you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the success in the world, but if you're not doing something that fulfills you and always challenging yourself, like you're gonna have emptiness. You're gonna have that loneliness.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because one thing you said on Bill You that I really related to is just plain and simply, the days you feel the worst are the days you don't do shit. It's just that.
Yeah.
And so the game is like, I've learned for myself,
Progress.
like one of my affirmations I listen to every day is I find fulfillment in the process and making tiny bits of progress every single day.
I love that.
Just to remind myself that it's so easy to wake up and say, gosh,
I didn't do enough.
you know, I could do this, I could do that, and there's so much big shit I could do. Oh, I'm a loser. You know what I mean? And like, instead of like, no, just go do your workout. Or just go do your, you know what I mean? Like just read a little bit. Yeah, like do literally anything was such a key lesson for me. Because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I justify it and I'm like, no, you know, my life's stressful and I did a lot this week and whatever. Like I'll just chill.
Yeah.
And it never, every time it feels like shit. So I think your lesson of like always having the next vision and always be making small steps towards that is so massive.
Yeah, and even you, like, I want to like commend you for even sharing that, like how we're going back to authenticity. Like you have days where you feel like a bum.
Yeah.
And you're not.
So
like people,
much.
you know, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
dude, like we have all the things, like we're at your place in LA, like, and we still have those feelings. So
Yeah.
like letting people know that like regardless of what you may see on social media, you may think I'm this successful and this and this and that. Like we all have those days.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all have those days, and like humans, we want the feeling of progression.
Yeah.
You know, like we want to move forward. And I love that affirmation of like anytime you experience any little bit of progress,
Yeah.
you know, you feel fulfilled in that. Like I love that you do the affirmations.
Yeah.
Like my affirmations is like, I'm a student of the game.
Yeah.
I'm a force for good. I am kind. Abundance flows through me. I'm decisive. I'm evolving as a leader. I'm becoming the man I'm meant to be. That's my affirmation.
Good shit.
Yeah.
Have you met Wiz Khalifa yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
We should hit them up, Dan, and try to get a collab.
Wiz is the
going.
man. Yeah, dude. Actually, it's funny you said that because like I was like, if I met Wiz Khalifa, what would be the thing that I'd say to him, right?
Yeah.
And my whole thing was, I compliment him on how great of a father he was,
Yeah.
and that if there's anything like if I like. That's the one thing I've realized doing seminars and meeting business people and all these things. Their always thing is, can you play with my kids? I want my kids to
Yeah.
experience you.
Yep.
You know, and so like that would be my token of like, hey, I just want to play with Cam, or
Yeah.
I just want to, you know,
Yeah.
so your kid can see an in-value perspective.
Yeah.
Because like if we can catch our kids early, because as parents, we're programming our kids,
Yeah.
right? You know, like we're all programmed through, whether you know it or not, from the way your parents reacted, the way they talked on the phone, the way they got pissed off in traffic, like, dude, everything,
Big
right?
time.
And so if you can give your kid an in-value perspective and show them a man with no legs of an arm, like playing with them or
Yeah.
just living life, they're like, wow, like daddy, like, look at him doing all these things. Like, how
Yeah.
empowering is that for a kid? And especially to plant that seed at such an early age.
Yeah. Because you want to, I agree with you completely. And what he does that's so cool, because like my goal with these events that I'm doing, which you're going to be at, I think,
Yeah. I'm excited.
in October, is to try, the same way you were saying, there's a bottleneck, there's a jam up of these like personal development events, because a lot of people just don't go to them. And I also think that growing up how I grew up, which was in the skateboard world where everything's kind of corny and whack and you hate everything,
It's like skateboarding. It's just skateboarding.
Yeah, skateboarding is the only thing that's cool. Yeah. and everything else sucks. And so like there's a lot of people that are like that in their own ways. And so like the step of actually going to one of those events is a pretty big ask for someone.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how to make that stuff a little more tolerable and a little cooler and a little, you know, not feel so threatening.
Yeah.
But that's one
Softer
thing
on the
that,
eye.
What you
Yeah,
say?
like softer on the eye, like for
Yeah,
people.
just when you look at it on Instagram, you're like, oh, I could have went to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like, oh, they're in some weird like hotel boardroom, you know, like in
like business,
suits.
I don't think I'm good enough.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
stand out.
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
And so one thing that Wiz is so incredible at is like, he's the coolest dude I know that talks about positivity and like
Wow.
what he's done with his physical transformation and
I
all this
love that
MMA
too, yeah.
training and he's just so freaking cool. And on this podcast, I asked him, what would you advice to a kid who just graduated college? What would you tell him? And his answer was, start smoking weed.
That's what I said.
And it just went, you know, like the video went viral. It was like, because he just doesn't, like, nothing has to be so serious.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
he's cool. But my question for you is like, I think the main number one thing that I take from everything I read and watched of you and now sitting here talking to you is the simple fact that our lives are all perspective.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's your choice how you want to work on it. It's tough. You have to build it like a muscle. It takes work.
Yep.
It's not just, okay, today I'm going to be happy and now you're happy for the rest of your life. But it is all perspective. It is all your control. And your life is shit or amazing. It's up to you.
Yeah.
To me, you embody that. Like I said, you've smiled on this thing more than anyone I've ever had. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're just sitting next to you. Like your personality is just sort of uplifting. My question is, how can people realize that, start to put it in action, start to do what you have done and what you are the embodiment of in their lives today, no matter where they are, what color they are, what race they are, what their body looks like? How do you start to change that?
Yeah, so I would, it goes back to the thing of like gamifying your life.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a big weeder of like the simulation theory of like life.
Yeah.
And every day we wake up in this body, this avatar.
Yeah.
And this is your avatar. And every day when you wake up, you have to reprogram your mind because your mind's a computer and it's meant to be negative. And so that's why we do affirmations, right? You have affirmations, you listen to positive things. So, even the simple thing to start off is, when you wake up, it's either like don't look at your phone for 30 minutes because there's a bunch of negativity, or immediately start feeding your mind with positive stuff or your affirmations. And if you don't know what affirmations are, it's like, write whatever you want to be, like I said, I'm a force for good. I'm a student of the game. Like these are the things that, make me feel good. And you say them over and over again because at first they may not feel believable, but that's why it's programming. It's called programming. And so if we can look at our lives and start gamifying it. And then the next thing is start committing to a couple little things. So the couple things that literally changed my life was I committed to writing in my journal my goals and my intent for the day. That changed my life. I committed to that. I committed to my affirmations, and then doing 1 hour of studying on knowledge that's congruent with whatever I'm working on. Those things, committing to those things, have changed my life because even in school, like I had a limiting belief that like I sucked at school, wasn't very good at school, I'm not a good learner, so I had a pain attached to learning. But if you start, realizing like that's not you, that's just your old beliefs and that's your old self, and you start reading books. Like I've read more books in the past 2 months than I have in my entire life. And that's because I just committed to something little. It was uncomfortable with me. Like that. That's why I wanted to share something that I have committed to that's uncomfortable with me because I don't like reading. I don't like studying. But now, like I like it and it makes me feel good and I feel like I evolved. And so, like, what are things in your life, little things that you can commit to? Because, like I said, it goes back to the relationship you have within yourself. And so, if we can commit to little things, like say you're sitting in here and you're like, oh, man, I don't know where to start. You're listening to this podcast. I don't know where to start. Read 10 pages a day of a book. Every single day. And when you get to that 7-day mark and you did a whole week, congratulate yourself. Or every day, congratulate yourself. Not only physically applaud yourself, but mentally applaud yourself. Good job. Good job. You did that. And as you do that, you build your character. You build your avatar. You build strength. You build confidence. You feel better about yourself. Maybe you want to get a little bit of health, like you want to get healthier. Go to the gym or do yoga or, say you're going to eat healthy 5 of the 7 days, but like start committing to little things. Like you don't have to start big, just commit, because as you commit, you'll feel so much better about yourself when you follow through, right? When we commit to things, we feel great about ourselves, and then you set the bar a little bit higher. You commit to something even greater, but start little. Read the 10 pages today. Do the yoga in the morning, or do the meditation in the morning, or send out what are you grateful for in the morning, or send out some thank you text or I love you text. Like just commit to something and follow through, and then comment in the section how you feel after you committed and follow through.
Huge. That's it, man. I mean, it's so that's so key. And I've learned literally that exact thing myself, mainly, to be honest, in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's what's led to all of this and the podcast. And I'm the same way. I didn't read a book my entire life until the first book ever was probably 5 years ago. It was Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And it was the first time it was so hard for me to read, and it was so hard to stay focused, and every little thing distracted me. But I realized for the first time that there's information in books that you can't get anywhere else, and that the feeling of reading 10 pages versus, let's say, doing 10 swipes on Instagram, the feeling of when you set each thing down is like night and day. And I'm the same way. And now I read, and once again, this is not to sound like a douchey bragger, but like I read a book a week because that's just the speed that I read. I don't time it. Sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 3 weeks. But on average, that's where I'm at. And it's just simply because I enjoy it so much. And it's
you did
so
that first.
Key. I hate it.
And
I feel, even when I say now I read a book a week, I hate the way I sound saying that, because growing up I was like, you freaking dork. Like, oh, cool, you read a book a week. You must be a genius. And so, but man, you're just dead on. And I think like I said, you embody that, and whatever. It's really cool. From 2 seconds of watching your stuff and paying attention to it, just your attitude and your will to keep growing despite how you were born is insane. And there's so many people that sit and complain and find their excuses, myself included sometimes, that I think this interview and all of your stuff will really, give a little
spark,
snap out of that.
I appreciate it, brother. I mean? Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Thanks for coming and doing it. I have 2 big questions I ask everyone at the end. Number 1, you can hop in a time machine and you can go anywhere in your life and tell yourself anything. Where do you go and what do you say?
Wow.
And you can take your time.
Yeah. I would I would go to my. I was in my room. I would go to high school. I'd go back to high school, or probably crying in my bed, and I would tell myself that, you know, when I was in that scarcity mindset, I would just be like, man, like once you have a massive mission that you're going to accomplish.
Yeah.
You have a massive mission you're going to accomplish, and once you are on purpose and you're living life on purpose, abundance in all areas of your life are going to come. Whether that's women, whether that's business, whether that's money, whatever it may be, whether that's fulfillment. Like you're put here. You're going to make a massive footprint in this world. I always say, I may not have legs, but I'm here to make a massive footprint in this world before I leave. So if I could have told myself that, then just to give myself, you know, like to stop thinking about how shitty I thought life was. Yeah. That's what I tell myself.
Big time. Okay, last one is you can prescribe anything to the world for 30 days, and they have to do it, right? Like they went to the doctor, you hand them their prescription, they have to commit to it for at least 30 days.
Did you ask Wiz this? Did he say
no,
weed?
I came up with these after. College was, at the time I asked,
Okay.
you talk to a kid, you run into a kid who just walked off stage at college graduation.
Got it.
What do you say to him?
Okay.
That was the old one.
Okay.
So this is the new one. What
would I prescribe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the thing that I was just saying. So I would say one workout a day.
Yep.
So 45 minutes or an hour, outside or indoor, whatever you want to do. Start with 10 pages reading.
Yep.
Your goals, your journals, your intent for the day, and affirmations.
Yep.
Start with those things. Commit. 30 days later, tell me how you feel. You'll be a totally different person.
Yeah, you'll change
Facts.
lives.
Like
yeah.
I have full confidence
Yeah.
that you will be a totally different person.
Not
and
even a
you'll
question.
feel so much better about yourself.
Yeah. Okay. There it is. Nick, thank you, man. I this was incredible.
Got it,
You're the
brother.
man, bro. We're doing yours next, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.